Budget meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. Used to say it, I'm sorry. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm buying some time for the other commissioner. Anyway, what the heck? Okay. Today's start of the meeting will be, the first item is salary and benefit plan for the public works, and then the cost of living and grade step scale. So, sure, at this time.
Mayor, more members of the commission, as we had indicated to you, kind of we go through phases as to what sectors of the city's employment we really take a good hard look at to make sure that we're in line with the market and, do our best with the private sector in the area and those sorts of things. We're still working on the finer details with Tanya on the public works piece of it. Between myself, Mike, and Tanya, want to make sure that we're discussing on agreed upon facts before then we can have the conversation with you guys. Have gone back and forth throughout the week and with our meeting on Monday and talking about the enterprise funds, water, sewer, and sanitation. We felt that would have been appropriate time to discuss that as we're continuing to work through that. And then as far as, the cost of living and the grades and the step scale, if you guys want to go through, I kind of broke out the presentation section. It is online as well, but it's probably easier just to look at the physical sheets here. As far as benefit changes from the state, there's a slight decrease on the public safety plan for the employer share. If we want to keep the same proportion of the employee and employer match, it shows the reduction there from the 10.3% to 10.04%. So a slight change there. In talking with Chief Bennett, there's been some back and forth and discussions as to whether or not the city should pursue exploring transitioning the fire department away from the standard main ND plan to the public safety plan. It's my understanding when the city went to ND PERS, the police department went into ND PERS public safety plan, but however, the fire department did not. I was not here. I do not know the reasons why they did not.
I don't know that it was really an offer to the fire departments at that time, because I don't think it was offered to us at that point.
Yeah, and so at this legislative session, they redid some of the definitions of the public safety stuff, which allows more, so like dispatchers are allowed to be in there also now.
Yeah,
And then they define
The
public service people.
Who
Yep.
first responders are, that's what they've defined. Okay.
So, we need to have some conversations. Number one, if that's something that the city commission would be generally supportive of, given more information, okay, we can go and talk to ND PERS and see what it is. There's two pieces of the public safety plans. There's with prior service and without prior service. I'm not exactly 100% sure what the two differences are. And so there's a huge difference in the local employer percentage cost share between the two. But for example, right now the police department's without prior service. And so it's that 10.04%. And so, if we could get the police department into the ND PERS public safety plan, keep that employer cost share at
You mean fire department? Yeah.
excuse me, the 10.04%. It could be a win-win, I think, for everybody. There are different retirement stipulations, which is why it's an attractive thing for public safety employees and whatever. And I believe they just made it eligible for EMS and correctional staff to be in that plan. So something that we can explore with the blessing of the city commission, unless you have any reservations with that. Tanya, is there anything big that I'm missing with that you're privy to that I'm not?
No, I think you did a great job explaining it. I think potentially that the difference between that with prior service and without is there might be a plan out there that individuals should be grandfathered in on. It's like an old PERS plan, and that might be what you're referring to with prior service. So I'm not positive on that, but
Does that mean that multiplier is a 2% versus the 1.7 or whatever it is now? Is that what that means? Grandfathered in? Do you know what I'm talking
I
about?
didn't quite catch all that.
Is that multiplier that they're talking about, a years of service times 2% or 1.7?
It could be, I guess I don't even know what you're looking at the moment, so I hesitate to answer, but yeah, that could be what it's referring to, is if you have prior service in a public safety plan, it's going to give you a higher rate,
Right,
So,
okay.
yes.
so anyways, we'll come back with more detailed facts and answers on those sorts of things for the commission's consideration if you guys are generally supportive of continuing to do further due diligence on it. So,
I guess I'm in favor of it. I mean,
okay. As far as health insurance, the city of Devils Lake has been very fortunate. We have a self-funded plan, and so we're not really exposed to the broader health insurance market where we have our own little self-funded pool, and it's performed well as of late. And so, however, budgeting a 5% increase, as you know, when everybody's been seeing those 10% increases, we have kind of been insulated from that a little bit, but you never know when your day's coming.
well, we got younger employees now. That's saving us, I think, a little bit.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Well, I've had 2 kids on the plan, so I've
Well,
crossed the city.
well,
a
I
little bit,
guess
I
that
can
would-
tell you that.
Yeah. Some of the, you know, when we have older ones, they seem to be doing a lot more medical stuff. So maybe that's good.
So that's just so you know, that's what we have budgeted, and you know, they don't send us the formal information until that October timeline, which can make it really hard to budget for at this time of the year. So we'll continue to keep you updated on that, but just so you know, when we go through the funds, that's what's reflected as far as the health insurance costs go. The salary plan, so in my analysis here, the CPI from June 2024 to June 2025 is 2.7%. In going through the general fund and all those sorts of things, the first proposal for the commission's consideration is 2% increase. It is a little shorter than the CPI. However, I have a future slide that'll show you that, you know, with the step increases at a minimum 2% for everybody. If you get the 2% cost of living in January and contingent upon satisfactory performance, which is usually a rare case that it isn't, you get another 2% increase in the middle of the year in July. And so if you take the beginning to the end, it's a total of a 3% cost of living. It's a total of 3% increase if you do get that step increase. So it does get you to that 2.7 by doing it through this means. As far as the grade and step scale recommendation, in talking with Tanya, first, number one, with the public works, and then just generally with the city, you know, we feel pretty good about where we are in the middle, but sometimes in the beginning and the end, that's maybe where we're a little catch up is needed. And especially when looking at public works, we think this is going to address a lot of the concerns. But in previous years, we had, remember when I first got here, there was a column AA and then there was a column AA.
Right.
And so we're going to propose dropping a column at the beginning and adding a column at the end. And, you know, one of the things as department head leaders here is some of the staff that's been here for quite a while and they're topped out and they don't get that step increase in the middle of the year because they're topped out. So this, you know, number one, it's going to start newer employees higher up on the scale. And if you've been here for a long time, you'd be able to see a step increase, which is something that you may not have seen for a while, right? We did it, I think, 2 years ago. And so this will just be another compound on that. And so that's an initial proposal for you guys' consideration. Although one thing that we're going to request, at least as far as department head leaders and team, is when I first arrived here, we had requested the commission's approval to have department heads have permission to hire up to an E. Well, since that time, we have since dropped 2 columns and added 2 columns on the end. And so maybe requesting the commission's authority to hire up to an F without coming to the commission's for their approval. Remember when it was just out of the pandemic, we had that's when the workforce was really as challenging as it had ever been. And we were trying to hire people, and the 2-week wait time to hire them above an A was really impacting our ability to get new employees in. So I'm going to recommend as part of this that we get further authorization to hire up to an F administratively, just so that we can get good qualified employees who are working for the city of Devils Lake when we have openings. Tanya, anything on the grades and steps as far as the dropping the column, adding the column that you'd like to add?
No, just that I'd like to reiterate what you were just saying about the ability to hire up, to that, grade or the step F. I think it's really important for supervisors to have a little bit of that discretion. This is such an employee market right now that we are in, and it has maybe improved slightly since those immediate post-COVID days. But like as it stands right now, like the F is our kind of, you could say, our year 5. And that I can say is just a pretty common standard with a lot of the agencies that I work with, that those first 5 steps are oftentimes, we give supervisors discretion to utilize up to those first 5 steps. So, and technically in Devils Lake, we've just been using 4. We've been going up to E. So I think it's very much in line with making sure that our supervisors have the tools they need to hire the people that we need. So. I don't have any further comments. I think you covered it pretty good, Spencer.
Any questions? And like I said, on the public works side, as far as granularly looking at, obviously it's the peer communities, but we're really, for utility workers, sanitation workers, streets, we're not really competing against Wahpeton and Valley City necessarily for those employees, and more so our regional market with NETC, MDU, Otter Tail, those sorts of things. So want to try and be as reasonably competitive with that as we can. And obviously it's more complicated when you have benefit packages, those sorts of things. And so really between Mike, Tanya, and I, we're just trying to drill down on some of the analysis. And so we have agreed upon facts that we can come to you for your consideration. We'll do that on Monday, the 28th. And then just as far as, so you guys are aware, when we talk cost of living increases, 2%, 2.5%, 3%, the step increases, a 1% change with the step increases cost the city before health insurance costs over $76,000 just in the general fund. And so when we talk about where do our costs in the general fund dictate where we are, it's heavily on the personnel side. So the 2% change, again, before the health insurance increases, is that $118,000, as well as health insurance at 5%, given the current plan makeups that we have, just over that 41,000. So if you're looking at the fixed personnel costs just on your decision making in regards to the 2% cost of living, 5% on healthcare, just on the general fund alone, it's just about $160,000. So, and if you talk about where the CPI was at that 2.7, I was looking at it at 2% or 2.5%, an extra 0.5% is going to cost another over $20,000. And I think once we're done with the whole general fund presentation, it'll come full picture as to how you guys want to approach that moving forward. And then again, just summarizing the employee impact as far as the 2% cost of living, and then the minimum 2% increase effective July 1, of which all employees would be eligible for, even those that are topped out, because we're adding the column at the end, would result in a 3% increase in tickets over the course of the year. No increase to the entire contribution, so the proposal is to keep the same employee and employer share, and then 5% increase on the health insurance budgeted.
Well, if we're going to do something with the fire department's retirement, that'll affect that, correct?
Yep. So right now, as the fire department is part of the main plan, the city contributes 10.07%. And so if we can get them in the public safety plan, it would reduce the city's contribution. But it also, it offers an earlier retirement date and all that sort of stuff. So we'll try and get that information to you the best that we can. But if we're able to keep them in the same plan that PD is, it should be relatively the same employer contribution.
Otherwise, it could go down.
Slightly. Just slightly, yeah.
Going down is better enough.
Yes, that's for sure.
So I have a question in regards to the salary schedule.
Yep.
Back when I was chief, and we did those kind of changing of the columns.
Yeah.
The problem I had, probably Jim had the same, was compression. When we had employees that were starting at a certain wage, and now we hire a brand new employee And he is getting this, he's got a year on, 2 years on. Now I've got another employee I just hire. And now he is beginning, and now he's beginning at the same rate as this guy that's been there for a couple of years.
Or if they get overtime and then they catch up to the higher level.
Sure.
Yeah.
And of course, guys talk, and so then he starts building this, like a little cancer that develops within the department, because now I'm getting not paid as what this guy gets paid, and I'm doing more than he's doing, whatever. So how do we combat that, or do we?
I don't have a really good answer for that right now.
Sure.
Um,
Neither did I. So
it's,
I don't think, Tanya, what are your thoughts on that? That compression stuff? We get just careful on how we, pardon?
I couldn't hear the comments very well, but I just, in regards to compression in general, I think that what we were just talking about, allowing our supervisors the ability to have a little bit of discretion when they do hire somebody with some experience, to be able to place them appropriately on the scale right off the get-go is a one way to help combat that. And then just making sure our scale is wide enough. We have, 13 steps right now, is that correct? I think?
it's 14.
14.
We have 14.
14, okay. And so having enough width there, like I used to, years ago, when we would talk about this, we would talk about the percentage of the width, so like the percentage of growth, and there's like a calculation that we could do. And honestly, our scale in Double Lake isn't really far off the average, but the calculation is like 30% is the average width of growth over the course of your career if you went from the bottom to the top. And I think in Double Lake, ours is a little bit under that, like 27% or something like that. So I mean, that's one way of looking at the width and the overall growth of our scale to make sure that we can account for all those varying levels of experience. But what you were just talking about, Spencer, one of the things that contributes to compression is when we do have staff that are tapped out, and then others catch up to them quickly, and they're not moving, and then others catch up to them. So there's a number of factors that contribute to it, and it's not one really easy way to fix it. So I don't know if I heard all of the comments. It was difficult to hear. So
from a public works perspective, I don't see compression being an issue because, let's face it, we're not able to hire somebody at a B level, right? We've had open positions for for an extended period of time. You're just not hiring at that level. The last hires that we've had have come in at an E level.
Sure.
And that's why that, changing that E to an F, if we drop a column, I think is important.
Right.
We did have a compression issue in streets. We had hired a couple of folks that had some experience, and this was some years back, and we hired them at a B. And then you had open positions. You couldn't hire somebody that didn't have any experience at a B.
Mm-hmm.
And so the commission, we brought recommendations to the commission, and we adjusted that within the street department. But in sanitation, the last hires, as well as within utilities, and we've had open positions. We had 2 open positions in utilities for an extended period of time. We just don't even get applicants. And then when you do get an applicant, there isn't, it used to be that you would take the cream, right? You would take the very best people that applied. And now it's, are we going to take a chance on this person?
Yeah. Which felony don't I have to?
Yeah, are we going to take a chance? And we see that with some turnover. And when we see the turnover, honestly, within Public Works, that turnover is in the beginning part of the scale, the younger employees, because the grass is always greener. And if we're paying $23 an hour, there's going to be a farmer that's going to pay 28.
Right.
Right. And so they don't take into consideration, hey, we're paying 10% of your retirement. We're paying this much on your health insurance. We're giving you this many vacation days. We're giving you this sick leave. We're giving you this many holidays. And so sometimes they come back after a few years, but we really have to look at the beginning part of the scale. And when, you give somebody a 2% increase in their pay, that's fine. But then you increase their portion of the family plan 5%.
Right.
It's the people on that end that you really have to look for. Because when we have employees that have been with us for 5 years, we're not seeing a lot of turnover after 5 years. We see a lot of turnover in the first 5.
Well,
And so I would expect, with the commission's authorization to hire at an F, we're going to continue to hire in that E and F range based on what I've seen. things might change, the market might change, but right now, it's tough.
Well, with what Mike just said, with that 5% health insurance that we were talking about, what part of with the family plan that we don't cover does an employee have to pay
20%. So we pay, so
about?
the city pays for 100% of a single plan.
Right.
So if you've got a young person that's going to get hired in the street department at that C or D or E level.
Right.
Oftentimes they're single guys.
Right.
So oftentimes what they are. And so they get the single plan. The city's paying for 100% of that
Correct.
plan. We pay 90% of a single with dependent and then 80% of the family plan.
Okay. So
We-
that 2% that we're going to get for a COLA, ultimately at 5%, they're probably,
They're
Still
losing
gonna be
most of it going to.
Well, this isn't a problem unique to Devil's Lake, right?
Correct.
But the 2%
I'm not
cost
saying
of living,
I gotta
2% on a big number versus the 5% on a smaller number, right? They're
Mhm.
still gonna make headway. But is it as much as we would like now?
There was an argument way back with all the
always
time.
is. It's
Yeah.
always an argument.
Mhm.
I just want everybody to know that. At least we're looking at that and
Yeah.
understand that that is an issue that we're all facing. But
Yeah.
it's what we can do to combat that, I guess. So.
But we still have options after we review the entire budget to see if,
Oh, so I'm jumping the gun, is that what you're
well,
saying?
not necessarily, but we could, that's, all we're doing is discussing what we're doing here right
It's
now.
going to beach and golf.
So
So, yeah,
Sure you
consider
will.
the, I mean, none of these things
challenge is
are,
on.
none of these things are set in stone, right? So we have until October
Yeah.
10th, I believe, to
Yeah.
get our budget approved.
Yep.
However, the August 4th, when we approve the preliminary budget, we're gonna have to, we can't increase the dollars levied on the property taxes from that point on. So maybe if we want to continue to have a longer conversation, we maybe just say, hey, we'll use the max that we can for right now, and then we can continue the conversation and reduce from there. But conversation for another day, I think, on that. Any other questions on the salary plan? Any other comments, Tanya, as far as salary plan, other than just a meeting on Public Works and having a conversation on Monday?
Nope, I don't have anything further.
All right, thanks, Tanya.
Thanks, Tanya.
Absolutely. Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move into the general fund up portion and first item, revenue projections.
Mayor, members of the commission, just to give you an insight on what we used for the revenue projections for later on when we go through all the funds. Sales tax did 2% over 2024 actuals. So we just got four, as far as the city's portion, excuse me. So 10% of what we received goes to the park district for their infrastructure project. So this is just city only. That 4.327 took 2% over that, rounded it off. So 4.414 million is the projections that I'm using for sales tax revenue. State aid, this is provided from the state of North Dakota, the League of Cities. The city retains 70% of this, 30% that we, by state statute, have to remit to the park district. As far as the initial allocations of sales tax, I wanted to maintain consistent with last year and then go through the general fund so you guys can see the trade-offs for shifting some sales tax allocations around, but pretty much keeping everything the same as far as the allocations go between debt service, property tax relief, economic development, and infrastructure. The next slide is the slide that you guys had seen earlier at our previous budget meeting that we had, the property tax levy. And I do have to talk up my guy, Rob Johnson over there. You listen to a lot of meetings, other cities, counties, whatnot. Everybody is really scratching their head on the 3% cap plus new growth. And I think Rob is setting the gold standard as far as how to present it and make it clear what the decision making, where that lies. You'll see the two highlighted. I've offered his services to other.
Come on, no, you
political
can teach
subs
it, you
to
know it so
explain
well,
it.
right?
He's that good at it, so You'll see the two highlighted on the bottom, the levy in dollars, the 1%, 2%, 3% increase if you calculated the new growth. What I have here as the initial budget is the 1% increase, which is an equivalent in dollars of 3%, right? So using 1% of the 3% cap, which is actually 3% if you calculate the new growth. Everybody's following me?
So
And then the
far.
other highlighted one is what we can use as a maximum this year for the property tax levy. 3%. Okay, but for the initial budget purposes, I just want to let you know, because I'm a guy, I like to be able to time and options, right? I like to keep my options open. And so if you can bank
And
the
our
percentage,
current mill rate is what, 90? 91?
90.11.
Huh?
90.11.
90.1.
That's what it was set at, but after getting the updated taxable values and everything, the actual mill rate ended up being 91.7.
So it'd still be about the same.
So, the mill rate is
The way
going down.
Yeah.
it will be going,
Regardless.
and that's the point.
Yep.
That's the whole point of the
That's-
cap thing. So,
So we're meeting the requirements.
Yes.
so again, for this just initial conversation, I'm going with the very first highlighted line, the 1% increase on the 1% towards the cap, but 3% on dollars. If that makes sense.
Mhm.
And if you go to the next page, I just broke down, okay, the 2025 mill levy in dollars. Now, if we use the 1% of the 3% cap, we'll talk to you guys on Monday about the cemetery, but we're going to propose freezing the $115,000 there. As we talk about rates and fees in the cemetery. The airport, we had that 3% increase for them, the library 3% for them. And then JDA, we need to do some catch up as we use some of our reserves the previous year. And so really that leaves for the general fund, if we use the whole, if we just stay at the 1%, that gives us that 1.801657 million. If we use the full
3%.
3%, we get an extra $43,000 in the general fund. That's keeping everything else, the airport at 3, the library at 3, cemetery frozen, JDA, what we had talked about. So that is where we are in regards to that. Really, as far as the next page, general fund, these are the non-departmental revenue sources, right? So we talked about property taxes, that's in there, the sales tax at the same percentage. And really pretty much everything is the same. I inputted the state aid distribution. Street lights, we're expecting about the same. And the interest earnings, we talked about interest earnings. Obviously, we had the sales tax election where we talked about how, we may need to shift some of those revenue sources that are keeping our utility rates the lowest in all the land, and maybe you need to bring those into the general fund to make things work. There is no way the general fund works if you do not move that over. And so I've changed the interest earnings from 350,000 and moved that 120,000 that we were using to help pay for water and sewer equipment reserve and put that in the general fund, of which we'll have a conversation on rates and fees and the utility funds on Monday. But that's what I did initially. And then the 20% enterprise transfer I highlighted down below. That is, that's looking at the rates and fees and what I think the direction that we're going to be going and presenting to you guys. So that aligns with Monday's presentation. That's initially where it's at. And then project administration, as far as the engineering goes, expecting $420,000 in project engineering. I told Mike that they need to work a little harder because their department costs $480,000, but they're only bringing in $420 this go around. So that'll all line up with the capital improvement plan.
We have to talk to the commissioner.
Damn internet.
We are getting 30% charged out to the rates and fees though, right? Because of public works. So we're
Well,
actually still making money.
30. Huh, technically. That's not how I think it. So that's the revenue side of things, what we're looking at for the general fund. As far as the non-departmental expenses, IT, human resources, those are roughly about the same for next year. Insurance just added a little bit. As far as computer goes, we have to make some firewall and network improvements. I included the breakdown. Rob did all the work and included and showed the financial breakdown and how we're allocating that out, as well as our IT equipment replacement plan. I don't know if you guys have any questions on that. Rob can answer any questions on the tech, but other than that, we can move on if you don't have any other questions. But those are really the fixed non-departmental related things. As far as the LEC, so they sent over like 3 options, like a 4% increase for their employees, and then it was like a 3% increase, and then there was a 3% increase with the captain included. This reflects the 3% without the captain. So that'll be a conversation on Monday that the LEC is coming, but I inputted those numbers for you.
If we're only giving 2%, I have a problem authorizing 3%, and we can't give our employees 3%.
Correct.
That's just what
Guess
I'd like to have that
that'll
discussion.
be a conversation.
That would be something I like, yeah. I mean, everybody does, if we're gonna support it,
So I inputted those numbers. So those were like the lowest ones that they sent over. So we'll have to see where they end up at.
Mhm.
And again, Star from the LEC is committed to coming on Monday the 20th. So then, like I said, the IT breakdowns are there. And really what the purpose of the IT equipment replacement plan, and you'll see later on the transfer out of $15,000 is we need to replace all of our servers in 2030. And so we want to make sure that we have the cash on hand to do that. And we don't wake up and, oh my gosh, we got to pay for $100,000 worth of servers. So we're trying to do legwork now in advance.
It'll be cheaper then too, right?
I would suspect so.
Round what?
And now I will turn it over if you guys are ready, Mayor, unless you have questions. Police and fire.
anybody have any questions?
I've got Chief Bennett and Chief Coastal here. The fire is up first on the list. If it pleases you, Mayor, we'll send it over to Chief Bennett to give a quick overview of his department.
Yep. So our increases, I guess, were based off of that 3% cap that we heard coming through on the legislative floor. The big increase that we have this year is that overtime. And the reason for that is the airport with the delayed flights and all that stuff. Plus with the having been down an employee covering flights and stuff like that. From January to June, we were right around 10,000 overtime. So we decided to try and put 20,000 in for this next budget cycle to make sure we have that covered. However, we have reworked the schedule, and as of right now, we're tracking, so we won't have a ton of overtime. But we would like to keep that in there just in case we have some issues, like an employee leaving or something like that. So hopefully we don't use it and it's just sitting in there, and then we can just put it back in the general fund at the end of the year. But
Well, some of the offset will be you're gonna have a new starter employee now. We just lost a more senior one, right?
We'll be opening up.
So
new
that's
position
gonna
on Monday.
reduce some of that to balance out some of that.
Yep. So
You should.
we'd love it if you would apply.
Yeah, you would.
Yeah,
Climb a ladder.
okay.
That's what I got. If you got any questions for me,
So is that your biggest change then?
that's
Nate?
pretty much the biggest
Your
change.
overtime?
Other than the increase in costs,
Yeah, other than just the salaries, benefits that are included there, pretty much everything is in line with the rest. If you look at the fire department's equipment replacement plan, obviously the big expense coming up is those SCBA's.
Yep.
That we're looking to partner with the volunteers on. But Chief's gonna work really hard. He said that he's gonna take some grant writing courses for FEMA and
Yep.
work with the surrounding agencies, and hopefully we could if we could get those paid for via a grant, that would be a huge, we're talking $160,000 for the city's piece of it, at which point we would probably, you don't want to punish departments for doing a really good job, but then having a bunch of money, that $200,000 to pay for that in the bank, maybe we would freeze it or whatnot. We'd have to have a conversation at that point.
Mhm.
But really want to thank Nate for charging ahead on that and try and make sure that he has all the resources he can to pursue that, because that'd be big for us. And that's planned to be purchased in 2027, so.
We haven't had a grant like that for a while, so maybe we're due to get one this time.
Yeah, and I am working with Starkweather. We're gonna work with Edmore, Rocket Lawton. We're gonna try and make it a countywide deal.
And then work with Joe out at Spirit Lake.
Yep,
I think
yep.
that would be huge if we can get them on board.
Yeah, because the FEMA grants tend to give preference to larger projects.
Yep.
That service a bigger area.
Mhm.
So we're gonna try and get as many departments involved as we can. Obviously, the point person on this is gonna be the Devils Lake Fire Department. But we're gonna have to work hand in hand with all these other departments to find out what they need, all that stuff. So we're gonna be working on that in the next year or two to try and make that happen, so.
When is the deadline on replacement?
2027 is when so I would like to clarify that the SCBA packs themselves don't expire, it's the bottles.
Mhm.
But by the time the bottles expire every 15 years, the technology for those packs is so outdated that everyone just updates to new SCBA's. So that's kind of what we're looking at.
They're all integrated with the night camera too, or the
Yeah,
vision.
there's new ones out that
Infrared.
have the infrared cameras built right into the packs. There's ones now that have Bluetooth on them, so like our software can track where the guys are at in the building. If we have a mayday, we'll know exactly where they're at. There's all kinds of that stuff, but again, that stuff all costs money.
Yep.
So it's all things we gotta look at, and that's why we're gonna start pursuing heavily grants
Mhm.
to see if we can fund that.
Is that every 15 years after?
Every 15 years they have to be replaced. Yep.
And it's ridiculous.
That's not bad.
Yeah, but they're costly. That's,
But I guess you guys don't use them very often, so.
well, that's supposed to be that way, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say,
That's the goal of it.
That's the point.
So if you guys have any other questions,
We get the fire department.
yeah, if you guys have any other questions about our budget, please
Okay.
ask. But it's pretty much right in line with what we did last year. so.
Okay.
No other questions on fire, Chief Toso?
Madam Mayor, members of the commission, other than salaries and benefits, obviously going up, increasing slightly. Total operation costs, we're gonna go down a bit. And a lot of that is due to, we had 2 squad cars this past year, next year we'll have 1 squad vehicle, and then a replacement for Sam Hanson's community service vehicle. I suspect that will be about $30,000. We also reduced our maintenance, lease on equipment software. Our last payment for our Axon tasers was this past year. And we're just gonna hold off on that for a bit. They're extremely expensive. We're paying upwards of $12,000 per year. We did that under Chief Kanowski. So we're gonna hold off. We think we can.
Sorry about that.
They're in good condition. We have plenty of cartridges to use. We're gonna float that for another year or two. It's recommended replacement after 5 years, but at this point, we don't have any issues with our tasers. We keep them in pretty good condition. Aside from that, we're looking at in-state travel. We increased that a bit. There's an increase in state rate on hotels and gas expenses, so we moved that up to 10,000. Equipment maintenance, we're keeping at 35,000 with the new vehicles that we've been able to purchase over the last year. We keep rotating them out. That has decreased from 40,000 in 2024. We're gonna keep that at 35,000. We're on a good streak right now, knock on wood. But, a lot of that has to do with getting the Durangos out of our fleet. So
Who would buy that?
keeping with the Ford Pursuit
Dang.
has helped
We're cheap.
a lot. Yeah, the price was right at the time. I understand. Other than that, I think we're looking pretty good. So overall, I did increase.
You said your budget was going down, but the number looks higher.
Right, that's operating is what I was telling you about. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Operation
I was
is.
just gonna say the same thing. I was like, do you have a different report than I do? 'Cause
Sure.
my number-
I had a different math teacher.
So operation last year was 421,000. We'll be at
Okay.
377,000 with
Gotcha.
operating costs.
Just had to,
We can't control the salary and benefits part.
okay, well,
If you
that,
look at overtime, it shows through 6 months, we're under slightly.
That's
We've
good.
expended all of our overtime. However, if you cycle in the special event DOT,
Mhm.
the carnival that we did special event security at, we're actually under 50%.
Sure.
So we're doing really well there. But aside from that, if you have any questions, I'm here to answer.
I just caution you, if you look at the 2023 and 2024 actuals, it looks like something's way out of whack. We used the ARPA funds for police personnel salaries, part of our general government services. So we had it quoted a different line item. So
So Jason, with the, you know, in 23 and 24, the overtime was so high.
Right.
You don't foresee that it'll still be an issue?
Right now, through 7 months, we're right at 50% of that used. When we,
Of the 20?
yeah, when we subtract out the DOT and all the overtime.
Look what happens when
No,
you get a chief. that
it's
knows
not
how to manage.
reconciled.
Too bad.
Better chief.
So they don't reconcile that, that goes. into
Oh, we added it,
different income fund.
added the detective. That should have cut some of the overtime.
Right, detectives really,
It really did take a lot of work.
no,
Well,
we've done better with, better towards the end there. We started doing
kind
better.
of jumped it.
I think that did help a bit, yeah, that's true. But the overtime budget is, money that comes in goes to different revenue fund, goes into the general fund. For that special, that overtime that's paid by another entity.
None of the questions.
Well,
None of them.
their equipment replacement plan is attached as well. Chief and I may have a conversation on 2027 for earmarked for 2 vehicles. I really want to get on a cadence where it's 2 1 year, one another, 2 1 year, one another, and we're going to be going between 2025 and 2026 at 2 a year. So see if we can wiggle some things around. And I like the equipment replacement plan better if it's got one vehicle next year. It looks a lot. It makes me feel more comfortable. So we're going to have a conversation just on specific needs, and we'll. Again, it's all plans, right? Everybody knows the Mike Tyson line about the plan till you get hit in the face, right? So we'll adapt. So
I did remove the detective vehicle, I'll have to transfer that into, repurposing one of our patrol vehicles later.
so when we present the full and complete equipment replacement plan with all of the departments, we will note if there's a change between here and there. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you, wait, hold on a second.
Yes.
So you're still looking at a 2-1 replacement? 2 1 year, 1 year next year?
Yeah.
However-
Yeah,
that's what we want to get to. That's what we want to get to.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't really including Sam Hanson's community service vehicle.
Yeah.
That's one. Right, and I don't assume we're gonna spend $20,000 on that. That's whatever is obviously not used. We don't have to put equipment in it, we're not gonna put a radio in it, he's gonna use his portable radio, which is kind of the reason behind the siren, those better radios. Actually reduces the need for actual portable radio in that vehicle, a mobile radio, so he'll just use his portable radio. I think we'll be pretty good.
Thank you.
So next thing on the item is shade tree.
Got it.
And going to propose to you, the city commission, from taking the shade tree budget out of the general fund and creating its own special revenue fund. So it's going to move. So I would propose we move it to one of the 2,000 accounts. So normally, it's somewhere between $55,000 and $65,000 a year as of now. And really that's paid for via all the other funding sources with sales tax, property tax, everything that we reviewed earlier. And so if we can take that out of the general fund, and going to present a proposal to you guys with that water source replacement fee. Remember with the sales tax we were thinking about, we had proposed partially or completely waiving that. In doing the capital improvement planning, I feel confident that we could reduce that water source replacement fee from $9, and what I'm going to propose is $5.50, and converting $3.50 of that into a forestry fee, right? So it'd be cost neutral for your residents, but we would then through rates and fees pay for shade tree. I went and I looked. West Fargo has a $3 shade tree. The city of Fargo has a $5.85 forestry fee. And so transitioning from just general fund resources to pay for forestry and transitioning this to rates and fees. And and also with the Emerald Ash Borer, trying to work, working with Corey and Commissioner Pierce, Shade Tree Committee, they're going to create an action plan. But I think on a high level, the action plan is let's try and get 50% of the ash trees removed over the next 5 years in total.
And then we have to replace them besides.
And we have to replace them, right? And so in talking with Corey Meyer, really going to try leaning in with grants. But if we can use the $3.50 forestry fee plus a projected grant that we're going to apply for, removing the trees is going to be about $60,000 a year if we want to get to that goal. And so we're going to need an alternative revenue source, hence the change on the rates and fees. A shift again. It's neutral. That decision's neutral on the utility bill. And we'll share in the capital improvement plan that the math works out. So,
Right.
any questions or concerns with that? I feel like it's a more appropriate place, especially if we're going to be over the next 5 years, instead of spending 60 grand, we're going to spend 120.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's more appropriate. No questions on that? I just compiled all the other general fund items, the city commission, municipal court, auditing, city attorney, assessing, engineering, city hall, public buildings, advertising and promotion, weed control planning. Nothing different or out of the norm other than just the changes in health insurance and cost of living. Salaries on that, we'll have to get with the city attorney. I think the contract will be up in the middle of 2026. So right now it projects what we currently have. We'll have to have a conversation as far as contract renewal with him at that time. But more to come on that front. And as you can see, sorry, forgive me, if you look at the auditing department, the city commission, and the engineering department, you'll see an extra column. That is the enterprise fund, like water, sewer, and sanitation, helping pay for the administrative costs of the auditing department and the engineering department and the city commission, since they are a big portion of the city's budget. A lot of the bills we pay are related to, if they were running their own business, they would need their own payroll and accounting and bill paying, all that sort of stuff. And so they help, basically like we're charging to those accounts. So. And then really at the end of the day, this is where the rubber meets the road. If you look at the end of it all, everything I just explained, and hence the reason where we're talking about the sales tax is, and we've massaged this quite a bit, it's a minus $250,000 difference between revenues and expenses with that. So, and we were talking about, okay, you either have to cut services or raise revenue. That's what we're facing. And we do have a healthy general fund reserve because of some strategic decision making we made when we had that influx of money from the pandemic. But it doesn't change the fact that we're going in the wrong direction. And at the end of the year, with everything as presented, we're going to go from 41% of expenses, a reserve to expenses ratio, down to 37. It's recommended that you don't go below 30, right? And so trying to bluntly say that if something doesn't change, either revenue raised and via other sources or cuts in other places, that we're heading in the opposite direction. And I think I included another slide, as I had communicated at the last general fund meeting we had. This has been the case for a while, for about 5 years, but because we received the influx of COVID or money during the pandemic, we've slowly increased the allocation of sales tax from 40% all the way to the 42.75 over the last 5 years, which is an extra almost $120,000, as well as interest rates went up. So we went from having basically 30 grand in interest earnings to now it's 470 that we're putting in there. That's been masking some of that now, but now reality is firmly hitting. And so, I have worked up options for the city commission, and all those options have trade-offs. And as staff, going to make sure that we, as a team, make explicitly clear what those trade-offs are, but then you as a city commissioner are going to have to make the policy decisions. We'll give you advice and counsel as much as you need it or want it. But I think, with the sales tax results, everybody saw what the percentages were. Decisions are going to have to be made. I can't be more blunt. I mean, that's really the blunt answer of it. So, would take any questions with that. But as far as options, I think I'll just communicate them on a high level right now to you. I have my list here. There's two categories, really. I don't have it. I didn't put this on. It's two categories. It's revenue raising or it's cost cutting. Revenue raising, you can put the maximum sales tax you can in the general fund, but after you do that, you can't do, next year you can't do it again. That'll give you $55,000. You could use the max property tax cap and put all that in the general fund. That'll get you an extra $43,000. So between those two, that's about 100. So now you're 150,000. But that still doesn't fix the problem. It's going to compound next year. We don't have franchise fees on electricity and natural gas. I think that was something about 15 years ago that City Commission looked at, chose not to do. If you feel like it's appropriate to revisit that, we can revisit that. Chief and I, we've been talking with the school district, and there are community partners, right? And if taxpayers at Devil's Lake are paying for the school district and they're paying for the city, right? And we can try and work out a better cost share. But really, at the end of the day, it's just who's paying it, the school or the city, but a better cost share with the SRO program. And that's something we've been talking with the superintendent for a little bit, but maybe those conversations need to be a little bit more sharper, maybe.
Well, they're in jeopardy of losing some of their money too, I think.
They may be. And so I think that there's an avenue where we can, in good faith, negotiate with the school district and get a little bit more favorable cost share on that, because we're quite underwater with that, and we can get a presentation on that if we really want. Then the other one is, so as part of the sales tax proposal, we had done an analysis, or we had done a review on the cap, right? So when you go to the store, the first $1,400 is you have to pay the city local sales tax, which is a total of $35. Anything above that, you don't have to pay city sales tax on. That's low compared to the rest of the state. And, the city commission could explore raising that $35 cap. Most other cities are above 50 or even 100.
How much would that generate?
It's impossible to know. I can't even begin to think about how we would go about calculating how much additional revenue that would bring in. I can't even begin to start. I'll call the tax commissioner's office, but I'm not optimistic they're going to be able to answer that there. So, cost cutting, right? There's $135,000 in support to outside organizations that are outside the city. They all do good things for the community. This is why the city did it in the beginning. That'll probably be rather painful, but it's on the table. It's there. Okay, I'm not going to list them. You don't need to start a firestorm right now.
No.
PD and IT equipment reserve transfer, we'd throw $40,000 away between police department and IT so that we can pay forward a lot of these equipment purchases that we know that we have to make every year. That way it all doesn't come at one time. We're paying for it incrementally, so it all doesn't hit at once. You can look at the utility department's share of administrative expenses. So we talked about the engineering and auditing staff and those sorts of things. We can look at that harder, but you just have to make it up on the utility bill side of it. At the end of the day, we talked about police department and fire department staffing levels, and then that's really goes on a high level what I have for you right now. Doesn't mean to say that you have to make the full $250,000 up in 1 year. No, because you have reserve balances, but you don't want those reserve balances to go below a certain number. And so on a high level, that's where you're at as far as the general fund goes. Again, as I told you before, as staff, we're going to make sure you guys understand you have your options. We will make sure the trade-offs are known to you. And we'll do our darndest to provide advice and counsel as you ask for it. But the policy decisions are going to have to be made. So that is where we're at. If you guys have any questions or comments on the general fund, I have the bond funds included as well.
What's our timeframe for, let's say if we wanted to make a decision this year, this budget period? When is that something that we need
It's
to?
gotta be
talk
approved.
So the preliminary
First-
budget we
first
need
September.
so the preliminary budget we need at the August 4th meeting, your approval. And what I'm going to advise is, we talked about the 1% cap, 3% cap. I think what I'm going to do is I would propose that you talk about the revenue raise and get an extra 43 grand if we use the max property tax. So I think on the August 4th, we'll put the max property tax that's allotted in there so that we can continue on and then we can whittle down from there and whatnot. So then that gives us between August 4th and October 7th, I believe, were the meetings that I put on. So that gives you 2 months.
Great.
So we've got about
Put on your thinking cap.
a little over 2 months from today. But my calendar's right. Am I right on that? Okay. That's what you have. So I guess there's consequences and trade-offs to everything. We're going to face them.
Sure.
And I think there's a lot of, we're going to have to be really good communicators with the public because every pot of money has its separate and designed purpose. Right. And so like with the general fund, you can only put a max of 20% of your utility bill revenue. State aid is what it is. Property taxes are capped at 3%. Sales tax, we can only put in 44%. Right. And so we have sales tax dollars that go to infrastructure and economic development. And so we can make investments in those areas and they don't impact the general fund. And if we can't put more sales tax into the general fund, given our ordinances, it doesn't impact that. You know what I mean? Right. So interest buy down agreements and facade loans and facility investments like remodeling portions of City Hall or talking about a police department relocation, those sorts of things. Things can be shifted around to make those things happen, but the general fund is a defined formula with capped revenue sources and specific expenses related to public safety and the general administration of the public, right? So just because there's a problem in the general fund doesn't mean that money can't be spent in other places or invested, right? And so we're gonna have to be really good communicators on that is, we're talking about possible cuts or revenue raised for operations. Okay, but then if you remodel the city commission chambers, we got to really communicate to people that every pot of money has a different purpose, and we're putting the max in the general fund with sales tax that we can't, which I anticipate we're going to end up doing, but you guys have to make that decision. So that's really what, at least I'm going to try to do with staff and myself is really be frank about those things because you can't gain the trust of the public with these decisions if not everybody understands. So.
We still need to decide how we want to proceed, whether, even though we lost a percentage of the tax about the downtown, we, still have grown the law enforcement center. We have a need for,
Grew it 15 years ago.
yeah, and we still have that problem. And staying there, there's, what are we, 60-some thousand a year we pay in rent.
Right.
That could go a long ways to paying for a facility of our own. So I think we got to seriously think about what we could do with that 60 grand to put it to better use.
And, Mayor, I think that's a good, we're going to talk on Monday about the capital improvement plan.
Mhm.
That's something that I met with you and Commissioner Hash about. That's a really good time to talk about that because again, the facility investments, that's not general fund operations.
Right.
That's infrastructure and those sorts of things. And those revenue sources can be shifted around and moved and changed and all that sort of stuff.
But we still have the downtown concerns and, and compounded with that. So, we want those conversations.
So I think Monday is going to be a great time for that. When we show you the capital improvement plan, and you see kind of the big dollar spent right on those hard infrastructure things and where opportunities may be. Team, did I miss anything? We've had a lot of conversations over the last 3 weeks. Anything that you guys want?
Is that it?
That's all I have, Mayor. And then the debt service funds, again, it's, I think they all speak for themselves. I would just point out, you talked about the sales tax transfer. If you go to.
Put all my stuff away.
Okay, well, if you just go to Fund 5476, there's,
Okay, right.
I put some more sales tax into there. If you ended up shifting more sales tax from debt service to the general fund, it's probably out of that $54.76.
There's nothing else. I first of all want to say thank you for the general public showing up and showing your interest in the city budget. I think you're the first ones since I've been doing budgets with, even when I was an employee, nobody showed up. So thank you for showing up and expressing interest.
Eric doesn't count, right?
Eric doesn't count.
Yeah, I wasn't looking at Eric, but I don't. No, but we appreciate it. Thank you for doing that.
Are we allowed to ask questions during the meeting?
Well, normally they don't allow that. I mean, but there is a point when you get a chance to talk about it. So, but if you have questions, please feel free to talk to Spencer. Okay, well, you keep it up, but during a meeting, there will be a public opportunity for you to express your concern. Okay, if not, I will adjourn the meeting.
You gonna hammer that or you just gonna?
I was just gonna say,